Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we're going to be doing our first post-Roaring Skies deck. Today I'm going to start off with Gengar EX. I feel like this gets a bit stronger in the new set thanks to Wobbuffet, because everyone's going to be trying to play Shaman, and Wobbuffet counters that pretty nicely, so I'm going to get into this. There's only a few proxies in here, but bear with me, it's quite obvious to tell. No, they're in black and white, so I'm not trying to hide anything, but let's get into the deck profile. I feel like this, like I say, it gets a bit stronger. The reason why Gengar at the moment isn't seeing too much play is because of how weak it is to Yveltal, to be honest. And with the amount of people going to counter Rayquaza, I feel like Yveltal in turn gets weaker as well. So let's just go into the deck and I'll explain a few reasons why I've got cards in here. So we're starting off with 3 Gengar EX. Gengar has 2 really nice attacks. First of all, Night Attack, putting 3 counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Pretty good for a first early attack, especially because you can do it for free with Dimension Valley. His second attack is the main one that we're going to be using in this strategy. It's Dark Corridor, doing 60 and automatically poisoning your opponent, as well as switching himself to the bench. So it's similar to a Donphan strategy where you hit and run with Gengar. His attack cost is nice, it's 2 colourless and a psychic, so we can attach just 2 energy and then use Dimension Valley to pay the rest of the cost. So that's what we're going to be going for here. This is not a Verbank City Gym build, it's a D-Valley build, so we're going to be using Muscle Band to increase our output. I also like Gengar because his math is actually nicer with Megas than it is with normally X's. It's a bit weird to think of it like that, but because Dark Corridor poisons them, if they stay active, it goes into 100 next turn, and then we can come in with Wobbuffet and do 110, and then that extra 10 from poison, if they're still poisoned, can actually hit 220. So I like these numbers against Megas with Gengar. It was kind of indifferent with normally X's, but I really like that maths with the Wobbuffet play. So Gengar, our main attacker, combined with Wobbuffet, really. So here with Wobbuffet, one of the cards that I think really does get huge after Primal, after Roaring Skies, I should say. Bide Barricade, just a super strong ability. Preventing Shaman is going to be huge as well. Essentially preventing the setup of a lot of different decks. Definitely making Rayquaza a lot clunkier, a lot slower, because naturally they're going to have less supporters and stuff to try and make room for these Shamans. So Wobbuffet really does help us out there, forcing your opponent into drawing less cards and sort of stopping their setup. In other random matchups as well, Wobbuffet's good for stopping things like Ninetales. A lot of people are going to be using that to try and lock their stadiums into play. Wobbuffet completely ignores that when he's active, so you can keep bouncing D-Valley back onto the field. So the Stadium Wall's always going to be a thing, and if you can bounce Skyfield away, you're also going to be harming a lot of new decks at the moment. So I feel like Wobbuffet's really good. His attack is also awesome. With D-Valley, just 1 Psychic Energy, which a lot of the time we're going to put on him anyway because we play Mystery Energy, giving him free retreat. He does 10 plus 10 more for each counter on him. So after we've smacked them with a Gengar, we can be doing 100 or 110, depending on if they switched out or not. So Wobbuffet's sometimes a good finisher, especially if Gengar's just missing out on a knockout. Always, if not, of course, you can just keep going back into Wobbuffet as a wall. So very good stuff there. Maxing him out to increase our odds of starting with him, because if we start with lone Wobbuffet, they can't escape rope or Lysander you out anywhere, and there's no way that they can get the turn 1 like Shaman start. The only other Pokemon we play in here is 1 Sigilyph. Sigilyph's really disruptive to all EX decks. There's a lot around at the moment, and why not play him? Especially if you're against decks like Groudon, where they don't really need their abilities or anything like that. Just use Sigilyph as a repetitive wall. It's pretty useful. On to trainers now. We've got Comp Search. Pretty obvious. Everyone plays Comp Search these days. 1 Tool Retriever. We're playing a combination of Floatstone and Muscle Band in here. Sometimes there are situations where you've not started Wobbuffet and you need to attach a Floatstone to move your Gengar, because it's sometimes very important to keep Wobbuffet in the active position. And obviously the numbers aren't as nice when Gengar has a Floatstone on him. So you can throw that off. Also, if you've been hit with a head ringer or something like that, you can also throw that off as well. Also, you can sometimes get sneaky knockouts with Wobbuffet, taking a float stone off of him and changing it from Muscle Band to then hit better numbers. Next up we've got one switch. I only like to play one really because we're playing Mr. Energy and float stones on top of all of that. It's just if we get poisoned or sent to sleep, that's the actual worry, we can still switch out. Then we're playing a couple of trollish cards. We're playing two Enhanced Hammer. Enhanced Hammer really does slow down Rayquaza even further. So without any abilities and without energy as well, they can really struggle against this deck. It really does slow them down quite effectively. Also against the dragon builds with all the double dragon energies, Enhanced Hammer can do a job over them. Also, if your opponent's playing Seismitoad, they've turn 1 DC'd without attacking because it's turn 1. You can just knock that off and make it difficult for them. Definitely if they're like a Slurpuff build, relying on the draw of Slurpuff, Wobbuffet again cancels that out. Next up we have two Robo-Subs. I only like really playing two because I know that Toad is going to be big, and for the majority of the time we're going to be using Wobbuffet to block. I really value blocking abilities for as long as possible over blocking prizes, because when it comes to mid to late game, then we can switch over to Robo-Subs when they've already got their setup regardless. Wobbuffet does become a bit redundant unless it's a heavily ability focused deck like a Romatisse or something like that. So having just the two Robo-Sub I think is the right call, especially because if we do really need them, we always have Trump Card to recycle. Next we're playing 3 VS Seeker to respam our supporters, pretty obvious there. And now we have our first Proxy. I think it might be the only card I'm playing in the whole deck. This is more reactive to the format rather than playing loads of new stuff. But here we are, we're playing 3 Trainers Males. I really like this card. It's absolutely fantastic for grabbing the things you need. There's a lot of 1 or 2 OBS that we're playing in the deck, trainer-wise and supporter-wise. We're playing a couple 1 or 2 OBS, and it's important to get your strategy going, and Trainer's Mail really does help you pick up those things that you need to a lot of the time. Especially because we can't play Shaman or Jirachi or anything like that. Trainer's Mail is a good consistency booster on our end that's not blocked by our own Wobbuffet. Next we're playing 3 Ultra Ball. I think 3 is the right number. A lot of the time there's not much that we need to search for. Once we've found our Gengar, once we've found our Wobbuffet, we should be pretty safe. So 3 is enough in my opinion. Next, continuing with the Troll cards, we're playing 2 Headringer. Good defense against Seismitoad. It can buy us an extra turn sometimes. Also good at just slowing down, again, other decks. I feel like the combo with Headringer and Enhanced Hammer and Wobbuffet can really shut down Rayquaza for a good number of turns and really give you an edge in that matchup specifically. In more general terms, a lot of people are going to be playing Megas in the new format. Mega Manectric, Mega Groudon, or Primal Groudon I should say. The occasional Gallade could even pop up. I don't know how good that card's going to be. But it seems to me that Megas and Primals are going to be ever more relevant, really. So Headringer seems like a good play to me. Stopping them, get their evolutions off and stuff like that, and also preventing attacking is just really nice. Continuing with tools, we've got the 3 Floatstone. Again, 3 I feel like is the right number. I don't want to overdo it. We do have Trump Card to obviously recycle, and there's Mystery Energy, so there's a lot of ways of getting free retreat on our guys. It's not all down to the Floatstone. Then we have the 3 Muscle Band, fantastic, needed for Gengar to do the 2 shots on EXs. Slap it onto Wobbuffets as well to do extra damage to kill Megas in 2 hits. It's just a very useful card. Next onto Sporters, we're playing 1 Trump Card, as I've mentioned a couple of times. Just recycling your things, it means you're never going to run out of Wobbuffets. If Sigilyphs prove to be a pain, you can recycle that midway through the game or something like that. And you've got a lot of stuff that you can recycle. Your Robo-Subs, your Flare Tools if they've been able to get them off somehow. So, yeah, very good card there. 1 Chorus. I feel like even though we're trying to prevent people's strategies, Chorus is still going to be fantastic in combination with Skyfield, and certain turns when you can just get crazy hands of like 12 cards or something like that. I feel like it's definitely worth having 1 slot, especially with the amount of VS Seeker we run. Then we're playing 2 Lysander for capturing up whatever we can. 2 Teammates because we're throwing up non-EX walls, so we're going to have a lot of options to use Teammates. Also, if Robo-Sub dies, you are able to use Teammates as well, so many potential turns of being able to use this card, which is why I really like it. It grabs us what we can and really helps out against stuff like Seismitoad matchups, because a lot of the time, if we're using other supporters, we're just going to be clogged with a bunch of trainers, because we do play quite a few in here, but Teammates allows us to be selective and get what we need. Then we're playing a pretty standard 4N for Juniper. Overall, this is quite a standard supporter line. Obviously, because we're not playing Shaman, we're not going to be really turbo and low counts of supporters overall, which you may see in a few other decks that I'm going to profile in the new format. This is very traditional. If we're going to be using ability lock, we're going to need the supporters to help us draw through the whole game. Finally, we've got the 4th Dimension Valley. Like I say, we're going to be trying to fight off every other stadium throughout the whole game, because Gengar is just so much better when it can attack for 1 less energy. Also, it means Wobbuffet's a fantastic attacker also. Bear in mind that we're always going to be able to have the Stadium War, because a lot of people who are going to try and lock it into play with Ninetales, that ability gets shut down so that we are able to switch out with Dimension Valley. So we're always going to have the Stadium War in this matchup, whatever we play against. On to energy now. It's pretty simple. 4 Mystery Energy that I pointed out earlier. I feel like 4 of these, plus the 1 switch, plus the 3 Floatstone, we have so much options to get into Wobbuffet turn 1 if we haven't actually started with him, so that we can get that lock up straight away. Also, it means we can move out of our Gengar and stuff freely. It just makes a lot of sense to play this card. If Enhanced Hammers are going to become a bit bigger, I can see myself going down to 3 or maybe even 2, but at the moment I don't see a reason why I shouldn't play 4. There's also an argument for playing more DCEs in here. I'm not playing any. And because Stadium Wars are going to be so big, there will be times when I need to attach that 3rd energy to Gengar, which does seem kind of painful. And DC would definitely sort that problem out. At the moment, I've gone for a pretty basic list, just for you guys to go off of. But you guys can play around with the energy counts. I can see maybe 3 Mystery Energy and 2 DCE and 1 less Psychic Energy. But this is how I've decided to play at the moment. Finally, we've just got the 6 regular Psychics. I feel like 10 energy is definitely enough to get you sorted throughout the game, especially because Wobbuffet's such a cheap attacker. If you're against like a Seismitoad player and they're going to be head-ringering all your Gengars and stuff, you can simply go into Wobbuffet. He's still really cheap and an effective attacker. We've also got Sigilyph, who can attack for 2 energy, and with a Muscle Band, Psychic doesn't do half decent damage either, so all of these things we can use to attack with. We've also got the Trump card, let's not forget, so it's very rare that we'll ever run out of energy throughout the whole game. So that is the Gengar deck, guys. I feel like Wobbuffet is so much stronger. That's the reason why I like playing Gengar now. Wobbuffet basically gets so much stronger at disrupting Rayquaza mainly. It also disrupts the new Dragon-type version of Rayquaza, which is very important, and just can be disruptive to any other deck wanting to use the Shaman engine. So I really like his new disruptive aspect to the game. I can also see Wobbuffet Bats being a very good deck in the future. Not certain if Gengar's the best card for it. Potentially could try out Donphan variants. Could also try out, like I say, Wobbats or some sort of Dimension Valley build with a high Wobbuffet count. But overall, that's the reason why I like Gengar in this new set, just because of how strong Wobbuffet is. And having this as disruptive factor means that Gengar has the time to set up its own strategy and make it difficult for your opponent to knock us out. So there it is, guys. I hope you enjoyed this first of my post-Roaring Skies decks. Leave your comments down below on how good you think Gengar's going to be in the future. Like I say, his main weaknesses in the past were that he was so easy just to Lysander up and kill with Yveltals. But now in the new set, I can see, like Rayquaza, if we're able to stop its strategy or stop its speed with Wobbuffet, that should be a fairly easy matchup with the amount of trollish cards that we have in here. The Headringers and the Enhanced Hammers. Also, decks like Manectric, they're going to become more popular. They can't simply Lysander and kill Gengar in one hit. Even Virgin, if that's able to stay around, stopping the red signal with Wobbuffet's very helpful. So there are actually a lot of good matchups that Gengar has now that it didn't really have in the past. So I hope I described everything perfectly for you guys. And like I say, leave your comments down below on what deck you'd like to see next. I've got plenty in the pipeline and I'm very excited to show off more decks. So I will see you guys next time.